A wise man once said, and this was a pro-Obamacare wise man, he said the whole point of Obamacare was to get the system a little bit pregnant. To put something in place that would be so difficult to get rid of that you would be forced to fix it. And gun control wise, that's what I see this as, is this is the big difficult first step of, as some of them have even slipped up and said out loud, damn right we're coming to take your guns.
Ed, we're talking about the ATF and the Biden administration. Sometimes I don't say the name out loud. The new rule concerning background checks, and it's 466 pages of a rule defining what it means to be engaged in business as a firearm seller. I'm assuming you've read every word.
It is always interesting that it can be that thorough and not actually define what it means, in their opinion, to be in the business of buying and selling firearms.
Yeah, I've been reading it as much as I can with other things, and this definition of engaged in business goes round and round and round. I mean, like I said, hundreds of pages, different reasons for, you can be engaged in the business of selling firearms and not even sell a firearm. That's what it says, like on page 186 or something way down in there. But all of the stories I've been reading, the news stories, where of course the liberal media is jumping on this immediately with like, yes, they're going for universal background checks, they're moving forward. Well, it's not what the rule says. The rule really is going to apply to about 20,000 people who the ATF has declared unlicensed dealers who are engaged in business, but they haven't gotten an FFL yet. And you, like most of the people watching, know that if you're engaged in the business of selling firearms, you have to get a federal firearms license and therefore conduct background checks before you sell a firearm. So we're out there with all kinds of stuff. I think you could still sell a gun to me if you wanted to.
Oh, well, I don't want to.
Oh.
I'm in the business of buying guns. I'm not in the business of buying and selling guns, in case the government is listening. I'm strictly in the business of buying guns, and business is good. But the main push here is, none of this makes sense to you or me or other gun owners just because it's not supposed to make sense to us. This is a very specific way that they can say to their voters, see, we are doing something. Mm-hmm. And like all what I would consider anti-gun policy, this is a very easy button, convenient way to punish political enemies. It's not that nobody who votes for people who push rules like this owns guns. It's just that most of the people who this is going to harass, and I use that term advisedly, will not be voting for the people who came up with rules like this. So this is just a very easy way to punish political opponents. That's all. It's my entire lifetime. That's all these kinds of rules have been.
And me being, the irrational and emotional one here is I'm firmly believing that this is just another step. We can call it the slippery slope or the erosion of what's going on. But I think this is the move toward universal background checks. We've heard this before, and they say 78% of even gun owners want universal background checks. They don't stop crime. Universal background checks do not stop crime, because if you sold me a gun, which we have already set up that you will not be doing.
Yeah, you lost me.
But if you sold me a gun and I used it in a crime, no one would know that you sold me that gun and I used it in a crime, whether there's a background check or not. If you did it outside the scope of a universal background check, again, no one would know that you sold me the gun until that gun was recovered after a crime. And so a universal background check is the first step in a list of guns, a gun registration scheme, which is the next step in a gun confiscation scheme. Because in order for universal background checks to work, to know that Kevin and Ed were selling guns back and forth to each other, the government would have to be able to look into my gun safe and say, last month you told me you had 17 guns, now you have 16. Show me the background check to where you disposed of this gun. And that's not a Second Amendment issue. That's a Fourth Amendment issue. That's illegal search and seizure.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And as a wise man once said, and this was a pro-Obamacare wise man, he said the whole point of Obamacare was to get the system a little bit pregnant. To put something in place that would be so difficult to get rid of that you would be forced to fix it. and gun control wise, that's what I see this as, is this is the big, difficult first step of, as some of them have even slipped up and said out loud, damn right we're coming to take your guns.
Yeah.
Is we have to have the bones of a system in place upon which we can build the universal gun registry. And the first tiny little step, the nose under the camel's tent, as my church-going friends would recognize, is going to be, well, no, come on, just relax, weirdo. This is just for these people who are selling 100 guns a month with no FFL. We just want to make sure. Don't you want fewer people murdered? When they say 70 or 80 or whatever percent of gun owners want more gun laws, they're asking those people, would you prefer to see fewer innocent people murdered? Yes. Yes. That's how they're getting those numbers. The reason they have to do this is A, as like they say on TV, red meat thrown to their voters, and B, there is no political appetite for more gun control. 2020 until now got rid of all that.
Yeah.
Lines around the block at the gun shop, the cops saying you're on your own, the mayor saying the police aren't going to be doing their job.
People waking up with what do you mean a 10-day wait? I never voted for that. No, that's because you never voted.
Yeah, there's no, by the numbers, there is not political appetite for more anti-gun laws. So they're doing what, big government type of people always do, of all stripes, is, oh, okay, well, if I can't pass this law, I'm just going to decree that this is what's up and we're going to do this and try to stop me. It's the old LBJ, of course it's a lie, but make them deny it. Yeah, of course this is illegal. Just try to stop me, though.
Yeah, and again, you're right that they're not passing a law. Well, the rule is created under the auspices of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which, the biggest gun control act since 1968 or 1986 or whatever we're describing this as. But it's going to come under some challenges. There will be legal challenges to this. Once it gets published in the Federal Register, which should be in the next day or two, then it takes effect in 30 days. And it is just a rule. And even in this 466-page document, I found places where the ATF was saying, well, yeah, we have the right to make this rule, and here's a citation.
You'll also find what I call the Marx Brothers Clause, which is, well, what is the definition of blank? Oh, don't worry, we'll fill it in later.
Yeah,
what does it mean to be in the business of buying and selling? We'll fill it in later. Yeah, don't worry about that.
We'll get that going. But another thing that really concerned me is on one of the stories, because I followed as many news stories as I could about this thing, and one of the stories, an unnamed administration spokesperson was on the record, but not giving their name, as saying, of course this isn't going to get us all the way there. It's not going to change much of anything, but it is the step. And that's where it's like you said before, you lost me. Oh, now I'm hooked. Yes, you're admitting that it's not going to help. You're admitting that it's not going to reduce crime the way you say it's going to reduce crime. But as you said, it's the building blocks. It's a foundation for what's next.
These are never about reducing crime, though. How many illegal machine guns have been imported into this country from China in the last 2 years? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Like switches. Glock switches, for people at home who don't know what they are. A Glock switch is an illegal machine gun that cannot be legally possessed in the United States of America unless you have a machine gun manufacturing license and you made it in your machine gun manufacturing shop. These are imported illegally from China. You pop the back plate off of a regular Glock 19 or 17, put this switch on, and it allows you to convert it into a machine pistol. When these people talk about reducing crime, they're not talking about going into all of the areas where those by TikTok and Instagram are known to be and kicking in doors and seizing illegal machine guns.
Right.
They're talking about you.
Yeah.
They're talking about, as mentioned earlier, their political enemies.
Right.
And they don't care about crime. If they cared about crime, they'd be acting very differently.
Yeah, they'd be doing things that would actually give people hope and actually give people opportunity, and they would be fighting crime in the neighborhoods where the crime is, places like East Baltimore, like the northwest side of Milwaukee, pretty much all of Chicago. And you're right. They're striking at the people who are easiest to strike at, which is the suburban gun owner who's going to follow this rule anyway, even though it is not a law, but it is an ATF rule with the force of law, and you can go to jail if you don't follow them. But they're not striking at the places where, as you said, we could follow it on TikTok and any other social media area where people are firing their illegal machine guns and then posting that online. And where is the ATF down there doing a sweep through that community to round up, like you said, Glock switches that are just flooding the market coming in from China or being produced in other ways? We're at a spot where, man, just doing stuff for the sake of doing it, like you said, your political enemies. So, what do you think is our next step?
My next step is to continue following all ATF rules and regulations. That's true.
Lean in as you say that.
It is.
And of course, I do follow all ATF rules and regulations.
The next step is, and this is where some people get very upset, and I extend to those people a preemptive apology. I'm sorry that you like guns, but you like voting for people who hate guns. The next step is to vote for people who will support your gun rights.
Yeah.
There isn't another option that is, admissible in polite company, other than to vote for people who will support your gun rights. And if you don't vote for people who support your gun rights, if you in fact actively vote against people who will support your gun rights, I don't know what else to tell you other than stop hitting yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're doing this to yourself. I know it's very frustrating because I know you like your guns, but you keep voting for people who hate you, or at least are acting like they hate you because you own a gun.
Yeah, and I will say the anti-gun politicians, I'll give them a little bit of credit. It's not personal. They don't personally hate Ed Combs. They just hate what Ed enjoys doing.
They haven't met me yet.
Yeah, I hate the freedoms for that. But you're right. This falls back to the 2020 days of those lines around the block and the people in California who were shocked to know that they couldn't go to a gun store and buy a gun. They had to have a 10-day wait.
I'm sorry. I was under the impression I could just go on the street and buy one of these I thought it was easier to get a gun than a book. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah, that's
right.
Exactly the response. And suddenly all of these law-abiding, honest citizens who wanted to protect themselves realized what real anti-gun legislation meant to them at that moment. And this is just another step along the way. So, yes, you're right. We need to vote. We need to be politically active. We need to keep our eye on what this stuff is doing and speak up about it, because nobody else is going to. If we don't use our rights, if we don't protect our rights, we're going to lose them. There we go, Dan. Perfect.
Cut it.
Now, before you go, if you think you're using the right caliber for self-defense, think again. And you might not even know it, but your ammo could be putting you at severe disadvantage when you pull the trigger. Click the link in the description below to watch this short, unbiased video comparing the top 4 self-defense calibers and see if you end up changing handguns.